So welcome everybody to this morning's session. This is an introduction to using visuals to help your child or young person. Just before we start, to let you know that we are recording the session for people that are not with us this morning. So we've kept everyone's cameras off at the moment while that recording's taking place. But please do ask any questions. You can pop them in the chat or just ask. That's absolutely fine. You should have your microphones unmuted now, so you can do that if you want to. So the whole session is really based on our experience of using visuals, either personally with our own families or with the families that we have worked with. So to start with, it'd be quite helpful just to understand what we mean when we talk about visual support. So we're talking about using either an object, a photograph, sign, or a picture to communicate. And we talk about visuals, and often we think about being able to see something, but this could actually be used for people who are visually impaired, because you could use things that are very tactile, and you can use physical objects. So you don't actually have to be able to see, which seems a bit strange when we talk about visual support. They should aid people in their communication, and they should provide them with an alternative way of communicating. So for some children who are non-verbal, we use visual supports, a system called PECS, where they can actually hand items to you so they can communicate with you. And often, a lot of time, visuals are used to help to provide structure and routine, and hopefully help to reduce frustration and give other opportunities to interact. Right, now let's hope this works, because it's an animation. So there is a general process that people go through, so young people go through when they're developing their understanding of using visual supports. So when we are introducing something in a visual way, we tend to go through this process in this order. So first of all, to start with, we use real objects. And this is something that most parents do with their children. So use a cup or use a juice box, something physical to start with. We can then move on to what we call small world objects, so little miniature figures. It might be a miniature house or an animal, something that represents what it is that you're trying to talk about. The next stage would be the use of photos. And then from there, we would move on to pictures or coloured symbols. And then we would move on to black and white drawings. So you can see it's a progression that you work through. And eventually, they may move on to using words, phrases, or sentences. So what we're going to do in this session is going to look at different ways that you can use visuals to support children, young people with their communication. So the first one we're going to look at is choosing boards. So for a lot of children, it can be quite overwhelming to know what they want to do and to communicate with you what they want to do. So a choice board can be used to help them to make those choices. It encourages them to communicate, and it also provides them with a visual reminder of things that are available for them to do. So you'll see this sometimes in school settings, that they will have these choice boards. And it encourages them to make the decisions for themselves. So basically, it's very simple. You have a board, you have some of the activities that they might like to do. So on this one, for example, we've got reading, we've got Lego, we've got trains, and the young person picks the item off that they want to, and they put that on as their choice. And then you would facilitate them being able to access that. So in this case, the young person's chosen to be able to go and do puzzles. It's a very simple tool, but actually is quite helpful for a young person who struggles to communicate to be able to do that, take that visual image and select what they want to do. The next use, which is quite effective, and I've used this with my children when they were little, they're not anymore, and this is the now and next. And it's a really simple process. So you have a board, which literally is now and next, and it has on the left what you're going to be doing now, and on the right what you're going to be doing next. You can use objects to do this, you can use photos, you can use symbols, whichever stage the child is at. It's quite helpful for activities that they don't want to do or that they find hard. So the example I've used there is going to the dentist. So my children, not keen on the dentist, what we used to do is say, right, now we're going to the dentist, and after the dentist, we're going to go to the park. So it helps to give that motivation, and it just helps them to think about what's coming next, if that makes sense. And that can be quite good for getting them to do activities that they may not be very keen on, like homework. And my screen is not moving. Sorry, apologies. Okay, so the next one is a visual timetable. So as a young person develops and gets used to using the system, you can go into much more detail and you can set up a timetable. Now, you could be using that timetable for a very small period of time. So it could be, for example, that you want to show from the moment they get up to breakfast. It could be that you want to show from when they get up to going to school, or it could be a whole day timetable. There are lots of benefits to using timetables. It helps a child to know what's coming next, and if they're anxious, that can help with managing their anxiety. Because it's visual, it takes off that pressure about processing verbal language. Some children find it very difficult. We see quite often with children, and I'm sure you've probably all experienced it. You give them some instructions, please go upstairs and get this, this, and this, and they come down and go, what was it that was asked for? But actually having something visual is much easier for them to process, and it means they're getting the information in two different formats. It can also support them with being independent because they know what's coming next, and it helps them with making decisions so they can start to think about their process and what they might want to do as part of that timetable. So as I said, they can be different processes, different timetables. It can be very detailed, it can be very small. So on the left, you'll see one which is a different style, which the young person takes off the activity as they do them and they pop them into the finished post box. And that allows them to have that control so they know what's coming. And then the one that's on the right is actually something that I used with my own son, and I have to say gave me a lot of sanity over the summer holidays. We found that as he got older, he wanted to know what was happening. Not having structure for 6 weeks was a bit of a nightmare. So he wanted to know, what am I doing on what day? Where am I going? When are my free days? What's the plan? So we used to, as you can see on the back of our living room door, used to have our process for the weeks so that he could actually see where we were going. That saved my sanity because I didn't have to continually repeat every single day what we were doing. That it can be very, very different depending on your child and your child's needs, but there are lots of options that you can use. You can also use visuals to help remind how to do regular activities. So what we recommend is that if you use these, you use them for things that are set routines, things that happen exactly the same every single time. And it just helps them to learn that process. So the ones that we've got on here, brushing your teeth or washing your hair. It could be other things like how to make a sandwich, how to make a cup of tea. We've been doing that within our life skills course that we've been running at the moment. And the idea is that you put these in the place where the activity happens. So the brush your teeth one would be in the bathroom. You might want one about what they need to put in their school bag so they remember what they need to pack. And also a lot of them we found have been quite helpful is about if you've got PE at school, about what you need to put back in your bag after PE so that you hopefully come home with 2 shoes and not one. Can't guarantee that's going to work, but it does help. And then the next area that you can use visuals is to support an understanding and management of emotions. So I've given some examples here. And I put a link at the bottom. There's a process called the 5-point scale, which is a tool that helps young people to break down their behaviours. So for a lot of young people, it can be quite hard for them to vocalise and understand where they're feeling. So the one that I've got here is an Angry Birds one, but you can obviously use whatever takes their fancy, whether that be Pokemon or Bluey or whatever the current craze happens to be. And this is quite good because it helps them to understand how they're feeling, what that looks like, and what they can do in those situations. And a lot of schools like to use this type of process to help them to understand, so they can say, for a lot of young people, they might not be able to say, I'm feeling really angry, or I feel like I'm about to explode, but they can point to a picture on the card to let you know that's where they are. And then you can help them to really explore that feeling. They know what it feels like and what they need to do next. And then on the left, there's also one which is for an older student, and that is around calming down and reflecting about what a situation that's happened and where they could take that next time. So visuals can be really helpful to help young people to understand and explore those feelings in a way that they can understand. And you can use different things. You can use scales, you can use pictures, you can use colours, whatever works for that young person. And as I said, you will get the slides afterwards, and there is a link on there which explains the 5-point scale. And if you are interested in it, we also have some books at the office at the Parent Carer Forum, which we can loan out to people as well. So then a more detailed way that you can use visuals is really to help support an understanding of social situations. For quite a lot of young people, it can be really hard to know what to do or what's going to happen. So these are two different styles. There are other ones that you can use. This, the one on the left is actually a comic strip, which older children seem to quite like. It's a bit more friendly for teenagers, I think. So, and they can design them themselves, and they're quite helpful. So, how to have this one is about how to have a conversation. It might be how to manage if you've got to queue for something. There's all sorts of things. And then on the opposite side, that one is talking about what it's like to go to school in a taxi, in effect, and the plan for the day. So all of these are things that you can create. There is a link there at the bottom, which is a lady called Carol Gray. She was the one that actually invented the whole concept of social stories. There's a really good video on there as well that explains what a social story is and how to construct them. There's software online that you can use. If you Google it, you'll find lots out there. There is also a software that you can purchase, which is the one that's on the right of the screen, which is designed by a company called Widget, and you can do that online, and they have some free samples and different bits and pieces on there as well. So top tips for using visuals. You need to introduce a visual to your child and explain what you're going to be using it for. That isn't probably going to be a one-off thing. That is going to be something that you're going to have to do several times so that until they get used to it. Think about when and where you want to be using the visual. When is it going to be the most useful and in what format? So for example, if you're going on a trip and you want to have a visual explaining what you're going to be doing, a paper copy that's not laminated is probably going to get destroyed as soon as it rains, or you go on a water ride if you're at a park. So it's thinking about, do I need to laminate it? Do I need to put it in a plastic? Do I need it small? Does it need to be discreet? Is it better to have the stages? One of the other things you can do, which I think you saw on one, let me go back, this one, is you can have a keyring one, which has, so you can literally attach it to the young person, they can take it with them, which has the different things on there. So it's thinking about how you're going to use it. If you're going to use objects, they need to make sense to the child, and then you can take alongside with that object a picture. So if you're moving from an object, for example, you were moving from a cup into a picture, you could have the cup and a photo of the picture so that you're slowly getting the child used to that. Be consistent. You need to keep using them. It takes a while for them to get used to the process. I would say don't try it for a couple of weeks and then give up. It takes quite a while for them to get used to it. So it's sticking with it and trying to be consistent in that use. And make sure that they are clearly visible for your child. So, there's no point in you having a visual on how to brush your teeth in the bedroom. It needs to be in the bathroom. It needs to be in the place that you're going to be doing that activity. And then I've put a whole range of different resources that are available for you that you can access. All of these have lots of resources on there that are free resources for parents. And when you get the slides, you'll be able to click on each of those boxes and it will take you to the relevant website. So for example, the inclusive communication one is a Somerset based one, and they have access to pre-done visuals. They also have a whole range of symbols that you can access and you can download and make your own visuals from that. And then the other ones have also got explanation videos, or I think it's the children and young people's health service one's very good. It's got lots of videos on what visuals are, how to do it, and talks you all through the process. So you can go back and you can watch those, and then you can obviously see for yourself what is going to work for your child or young person. So you'll get all of this sent out to you afterwards. They'll also be put onto Somerset's local offer, so you will be able to go on there. If you haven't been able to attend the session live, you'll be able to click on all of the links and be able to access the information as well.